We're live from our studios here, number 35, John Hammond Street in Accra. Hello, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the midday news on 3FM 92.7. Live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. My name is Noble Crosby Annan. In the bulletin this afternoon, former NPP chairman Freddie Blake granted bail of 800,000 cedis with two sureties by the Koforidua High Court following an arrest. We have the details shortly. Plus, minority demands removal of the 1 cedi fuel levy as it calls for urgent relief for consumers in the face of crude price hikes due to ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Plus, Senegalese Football Association, the federation, initiates appeal processes against CAF's controversial decision that stripped the country of the 2025 AFCON title and named Morocco champions. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome to the program. Reminder that we're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. Join us there. Let's get interactive. Let's start the bulletin from here. The Koforidua High Court has granted former NPP National Chairman Freddie Blake a bail of 800,000 cedis with two sureties. His residence must remain in either the Eastern region or the Greater Accra region. And this comes after Mr. Blake's legal team filed a motion challenging a decision by the Ekropong Circuit Court to remand him into custody for 3 weeks in connection with a land dispute. Now, earlier, a group of youth had besieged the court premises in show of solidarity. My colleague Yvonne Nikwe is joining us from the Eastern region. She has been following the details and she's joining us for more. Yvonne, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, tell us the trajectory of the case. Where have we traveled from up until this point?
All right. So the land disputes issue began in 2005. Freddie Blake and 3 others were supposed to answer to a complainant who had said that the land that they allegedly had given some orders to demolish some structures on the land were supposed to answer. The 3 were given notice and served by the court, but Freddie Blake could not be served. But the court felt that between when the issue was brought to court and as at Monday when they had remanded him were too long a time for him to, as it were, evade the court notice of service. And so when he appeared in court on Monday as his first time to actually be in appearance, the court remanded him in police custody. Now, the team of Freddie Blake says that the decision by the Ekropong Circuit Court to remand him in police custody for 3 weeks was not in good faith of the court because today they said that he was an astute politician known by everybody. He cannot abscond or probably evade the court process. Again, he was in a frail state, an aged man who is still being at the hospital. We know that the hospital is the UGMC hospital. And so, based on these submissions and then the issues of him not being officially served yet, they pleaded the court that he be granted bail and then the matter be continued at the Ekropong court. The court had the submission from the legal team, guided by his age and failed state, that he, as well, being an astute politician and cannot be at risk to flight, meaning he cannot escape by traveling out of the country. He'd been granted the 800,000 bail to ensure that he still stays in either the Greater Accra region or the Eastern region for the court to for the case to continue. So these has been the issue from the word go, and now as of today, when the Koforidua High Court granted him the bail.
Yvonne, thank you so much for giving us those details. Yvonne Nikwe speaking to us from the Eastern region, updating us on the latest concerning the former NPP chairman, Freddie Blake. Godfrey Jame, the former Attorney General, represented the Honorable Freddie Blake in court. This is what he had to say after proceedings.
No one can reasonably expect that Freddie Blake is one person who absconded from extradition, let alone the process of the law. And for that matter, clearly, those are granted. It's an offense that is quite serious without any base at all. he never committed the offense that he's charged with, which is causing unlawful damage to property. In the prosecution's case itself, the facts of the prosecution's case itself show that he was not the one who authorized the alleged destruction of any property, and indeed there was no property at all on the land, or there was no grade on the land to destroy it. There was no grade at all. So, I mean, these matters that are quite strange. I mean, I see this development as very unhealthy for our judicial system. It brings the judiciary into dispute when they have such a person denied bail and sent on remand for about 3 weeks, come back after the Easter holidays, only to punish a person unjustifiably. That's probably because the matter has not even been gone to, and if you go into the matter, you see that clearly he cannot be guilty of defense at all. And thankfully, the presiding judge also carried because for him to have been put through the requirement of having two public servants and all himself would be a little bit not necessarily hard, but a little bit harsh. And that's all that it ought to be carried. It was carried in the way that it was done. But I'll say that, I mean, I very much deplore the conduct of the judge at more. The thing that such conduct, apart from bringing the judiciary to dispute, is actually symptomatic of some judicial high-handedness. High-handedness in the sense that he was treated from our perspective, perhaps on account of his background, political background and all that. But this is not a matter that they will be granted to any person at all, no matter how high standing or low standing person in society. And so how will you treat him in this way, especially when there's evidence of the service to the summons?
Godfred Yeboah Dame, former Attorney General representing the former chairman of the NPP, Freddie Blake there. We're still staying on legal issues because aggrieved youth and supporters of Frederick Kumi, a.k.a. Abu Trika, they massed up at the Basic Court demanding the release of the Swedro indigent. The Swedro resident displaying placards protested the extradition of Abu Trika. He is said to be involved in an $8 million international romance scam targeting elderly U.S. nationals. He's fighting his extradition in court. Lord Eduasare is my colleague who's following the details, and he's joining us on the phone. Lord, thank you so much for updating us and joining us. Talk to us about the latest development on this matter.
Well, according to you, that Freddie Kumi, also known as Abu Trika, he and then two others, one person eventually was discharged, but they have been before the basic court for a while now in the extradition case against them. They are both in of indigenous scum. Now,
Hello, Lord.
The charges.
Unfortunately, Lord, I lost you at a point.
Can
you hear me, Lord?
Yeah.
I lost you at a point. Please make your point again.
Yeah, so I'm saying that in court today, Oliver Bakavamo, the lead counsel for Abu Trika, he made the argument that the charges leveled against Abu Trika by the state are politically motivated, and so he filed a preliminary objection against the grounds or the submissions by the state. Now, the court judge indicated that it's time to what they filed, and so what happened when they do it's just interesting.
Unfortunately, we'll have to reconnect with Lord Eduasare. We don't seem to have a better connection with him. But Lord, we'll call you back and then we'll continue the conversation. Lord Eduasare is our court correspondent attempting to explain to us the latest concerning Abu Trika there. When we reach him, we'll continue that conversation. But in the meantime, this afternoon, the minority in Parliament, they are demanding the immediate removal of the 1 cedi fuel levy, citing the sharp rise in fuel prices triggered by ongoing war in Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, Deputy Ranking Member on the Energy Committee, Collins Adamaku Mensah, argued that the levy is placing an unbearable strain on Ghanaians already grappling with rising cost of living. He insists that government must act swiftly to cushion consumers in the face of external shocks and place before Parliament a bill to repeal the law by a certificate of urgency.
The cedi is no longer absorbing anything. According to projections by the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, petrol prices could rise by as much as 16.92% and diesel by 17.2% in the coming pricing window of March 2026 alone, driven by a sharp surge in crude oil prices from approximately $71.41 per barrel to over $100 per barrel in mid-March, amid the war involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. Diesel was selling at 15.60 per litre, and petrol had exceeded 12.40 per litre. The Energy Sector Levies Amendment Act of 2025 officially added approximately 1 Ghana cedi to the price build-up, bringing the total energy sector shortfall and debt repayment levy to 1.95 Ghana cedi for petrol and 1.93 Ghana cedi for diesel. If the guarantee has been restored, and if the cedi is no longer shielding consumers from levies impacts, then the justification for the 1 Ghana cedi doomsday levy has completely evaporated. Keeping it is not policy, it is punishment. We call on government to immediately amend the Energy Sector Levies Amendment Act 2025 under a certificate of urgency to repeal the 1 Ghana cedi doomsday levy forthwith. Additionally, we call on government to direct a comprehensive review of all taxes and levies embedded in the petroleum price build-up and to intensify those that can be suspended or restricted to cushion consumers from the full weights of the current global oil price shock.
Well, the minority is also calling for a reduction in utility tariffs by up to 10%, warning that households and businesses are being squeezed from multiple fronts as fuel and energy continue to climb. PRC, last week, they reduced utility tariffs by almost 5%, but the minorities say that is not enough.
The Public Utilities Regulatory Commission announced on 13th March 2026 reductions in electricity and water tariffs effective 1st April 2026, with electricity tariffs falling by an average of 4.81% and water tariffs by 3.06%. We say plainly, this reduction is insufficient, and Ghanaian consumers deserve far better. We have carefully reviewed PURC's own quarterly data for 2025. What those figures reveal is a consistent and systematic pattern of overprojection in both inflation and exchange rate assumptions. The warranted tariff reduction for the current period should have been, and I repeat, should have been no less than 10%. Our own analysis of the full year 2025 data concurs. The 4.81% reduction announced by the PURC does not reflect the actual economic conditions of 2025. It reflects a fraction of what consumers are genuinely owed. A 4.81% reduction against a 23% cumulative increase is not relief. Furthermore, we wish to place on record a critical point that this government has deliberately avoided. This reduction has come about while Ghana remains under the IMF program. This incontrovertible proof that the IMF program does not mandate upward tariff adjustment. The MPP did not sign an agreement for perpetual increases. Every single increment imposed on Ghanaian consumers under this administration is the direct result of the policy choices. We call on the PURC to urgently review its methodology, using verified actual economic data to implement a corrective adjustment that delivers genuine relief, not less than 10% to consumers in Q3 of 2026.
And that's the voice of the minority in Parliament, Deputy Ranking Member on the Energy Committee, Collins Adomako Mensah, speaking there. He also spoke about concerns of fast depleting ECG prepaid credit, and they are demanding the publication of an investigative report into the matter.
That 7-day deadline expired on 4th March 2026. Today is 18th March 2026. We are now well past 3 weeks since the minister's directive. The report has not been published. The minister has not addressed the public. Consumers are still watching the prepaid credit drain. This is not a new crisis. The cycle of consumer outcry, followed by audits announcements, followed by unresolved complaints, has now repeated itself at least twice within 14 months. The PRC's own executive secretary, Dr. Shafiq Suleiman, identified 3 distinct technical causes for the rapid credit depletion, ranging from meter connectivity failures to aging hardware unable to process the new MYTO tariff parameters. He further confirmed that consumers would not be left to absorb the cost of metering errors and that PRC would ensure refunds where overbilling is confirmed. Yet, weeks later, not a single verifiable published report has been made public or laid before Parliament. We make the following demands. First, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition must immediately publish the full investigation reports submitted by ECG. Ghanaians deserve to know the scale of the problem, the number of affected meters, the extent of overbilling, and the corrective actions taken. Second, the PRC must lay before Parliament and the public its own findings from the emergency meeting of 26 February and state clearly how many meters have been replaced, how many consumers have been compensated, and what systematic fix has been deployed. Thirdly, we call for a parliamentary committee hearing on this matter, and we will be tabling the necessary motions to that effect. This cannot be allowed to become another promise.
The voice of Collins Adomako Mensah, the deputy ranking member on the Energy Committee in Parliament. This is still the midday news on 3FM 92.7. We're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. Stay with us. When we come back from this break, we're talking about the latest happenings in Senegal concerning the ruling from the Confederation of African Football. Don't go away. The program, let's bring you some more stories, and this is in relation to the latest in Senegal, because the Senegalese Football Federation, it has initiated an appeal against CAF's decision that stripped the country of the 2025 AFCON title and named Morocco champions. In a landmark decision on Tuesday, the CAF Appeals Board ruled that the Senegal national team had forfeited the AFCON final after several players walked off the pitch to their dressing room in protest of a referee's decision. Now, the ruling said Senegal had breached Articles 82 and 84 of AFCON's regulations when they staged a walkout during the game. The Confederation of African Football appeal body shockingly overturned the result of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations final, stripping Senegal of their title and awarding it to the host Morocco, prompting massive outrage. Although Senegal originally won the match 1-0 in extra time on January 18, 2026, the match 17 ruling declared that Senegal forfeited the game due to a dramatic 17-minute walk-off protest in the final minutes of regulation time. In a statement on Wednesday, the Senegalese FA says that the latest ruling by the appeals board discredits African football. The federation added that it will initiate an appeal as soon as possible before the Court of Arbitration for Sports to deliberate on the matter. Let's speak to sports analyst Jerome Ochere. He's joining us on the phone lines for some more details on this development. Jerome, thank you so much for joining us. What we are seeing play out here, CAF says Morocco are now the AFCON champions and that Senegal has been stripped of the title. Help us understand this decision.
Well, as you narrated, Morocco appealed the fact that Senegal walked off the final game against AFCON, and CAF simply upheld the appeal, saying that because Senegal walked off the pitch in the course of the game at some point, even though they returned, they forfeit the fact that they won that game. And so now Morocco has been declared winners of that game. But the reaction that has greeted this decision is a mixed one. I mean, there are those who think that CAF is right, CAF is playing by the rules, but there are those who also believe that CAF is just making a mockery of the African game. And I belong to that group of people who think that the path CAF has taken is not the best. It is going to ridicule the AFCON furthermore than it has been done. Because, look, the game is played with rules. There's no question about that. But those same rules empower the referee to take decisions in the course of the game. So in this particular instance, the referee had the power to call off the match and declare Morocco winners when Senegal walked off the pitch. But as we all saw on television, Senegal came back after some appeals by some of their players and some of their leaders, continued the game, and won the game on fair grounds. The same CAF that has today taken a decision to reverse whatever happened in Morocco that night awarded Senegal the trophy, handed medals. The next morning, if you went on CAF website, you would have seen the stories indicating the fact that Senegal are African champions. How do you decide over all these developments and then nearly 2 months later, you come back to say that Senegal erred?
I see.
They did the wrong thing.
So, Jeremy,
for that reason,
finally,
that stripped off the title.
Right. Senegal saying that they are headed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. What do you make of their case, briefly, sir?
I think it's the best decision for Senegal to take at this moment. They have to head to CAF. It is going to help us put a finality to the matter, because once CAF upheld the decision of CAF, it becomes a precedent. All of us would then know that should this happen again, this is the path to go. If CAF overturns the decision that the CAF Disciplinary Committee has taken right now, again, it will be a precedent. But the joy will be that it will affirm the position some of us have taken, that the way CAF is running African football, particularly with this decision, will not augur well for the image or reputation of the game going forward.
I see. Jerome, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Jerome Ochere is a sport analyst updating us on the latest development concerning the decision from the Confederation of African Football. Away from that, President John Dramani Mahama has issued a directive to Finance Ministry to activate a thorough review of Ghana's pension structure. And he intimates that it should place special emphasis on increasing participation among workers in the informal sector. Speaking during the presidential dialogue with organized labor, he stressed that all Ghanaian workers deserve to retire with dignity.
Leaders of organized labor. For many years, Ghana has faced ongoing disparities in public sector pay, repeated labor disputes, and a remuneration system that often struggles to balance fairness to workers with the country's financial realities. These challenges have exerted significant pressure on public finances, and at times they have strained the social compact that exists between government and organized labor. It is therefore my firm conviction that the time has come not for just incremental adjustments, but for bold structural reforms in how public sector emoluments are determined and managed. Accordingly, as part of our research agenda, the government has declared 2026 as the year of transition from the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to a new independent Emoluments Commission. The Independent Emoluments Commission will create a transparent, rules-based, and evidence-driven system for setting public sector pay. Under this framework, salaries and benefits will be guided by productivity, labor market realities, fiscal sustainability, strategic national priorities. And through this reform, government aims to, 1, address long-standing inequities within the public sector, rationalize allowances and benefits, strengthen the link between pay and productivity. Our goal is to move away from the fragmented and ad hoc wage decisions towards a system that is fair to workers, is responsible to the taxpayers, and is sustainable for future generations. In preparation for the new framework, the Independent Emoluments Commission will develop a comprehensive national emoluments policy. The policy will address 1, pay disparities, harmonize allowances, strengthen performance-based compensation, align public sector pay with Ghana's long-term development and fiscal priorities. My comrades and friends, our pension system stands at a critical crossroads. Nearly 2 decades after the introduction of the 3-tier pension system, coverage remains limited. Out of an estimated 10 million workers, fewer than 2 million are contributing regularly. Pension assets stand at approximately 100 billion Ghana cedis, representing only about 7% of GDP. And I'm afraid to say this is well below continental benchmarks.
The voice of President John Dramani Mahama there speaking. To some other stories, 5 of the 6 families who lost their wards during the first phase of the military recruitment have been given replacement. The military say one family has yet to present a substitute. My colleague Joseph Armstrong Gold Alagbe is at the final stage of the recruitment process, and he's now joining us to update us on the latest happening. Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us. Talk to us about where you were and the latest concerning the substitute or the replacement of the applicants who lost their lives.
Currently here at the Nicholson Park inside Bama Camp is the final phase of the recruitment process, where some 2,000 potential applicants have been shortlisted to collect their prospectus, after which they report to training on 27th March. So far, we are told those who are gathered here in Accra are numbering about 507, and across the entire country, all 16 regions, this process is currently ongoing. We are fortunate to have with us the Director, Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Armed Forces, Naval Captain Vero Ahin, who wants to give us some briefing, because earlier they have with a release where they were explaining that those who were injured in last year's unfortunate incidents have been added to the recruitment, and also those that lost their lives, their families have replaced them with some family members. Let's quickly engage with her for some further explanation on what exactly we are to expect. So we've seen people running around. Are they already soldiers?
Not yet, Armstrong. So like you rightly said, this is the final phase of their recruitment process. After collecting their prospectus today, they will now go for recruitment training.
Right, Armstrong, unfortunately we'll have to leave it here. We'll get back to you for some more details concerning this. My colleague Armstrong Gold Alogbe there. And that's how we wrap up on the midday news here on 3FM 92.7. There's more news on our website, 3news.com. My name is Noble Crosby Annan. Business News is up next. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye. FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also coming up this afternoon, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana set to announce interest rate decision later today. Meanwhile, finance and tax analyst expects the Bank of Ghana to adopt a cautious approach by cutting rates by 100 to 200 basis points.
At the end of the policy meeting, we expect the Bank of Ghana to cut down on the rate moderately by some 100 to 200 basis points.
And Center for Extractives and Development Africa said that demands immediate transparency in Ghana's multi-billion cedi mineral revenue management.
Though they have published their investment guidelines, they were supposed to publish it in the first or second year of their operations. They only publish it in 2024.
Details of our headline stories and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now, in a couple of hours, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana is expected to announce its first interest rate decision. The announcement follows high-stakes, three-day deliberative session that began on Monday, led by Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report.
The committee is meeting a pivotal moment for the Ghanaian economy, balancing domestic macroeconomic gains against significant global headwinds. At the committee's last meeting in January 2026, the MPC slashed the monetary policy rate by 250 basis points, bringing it down to 15.5%. The decision was underpinned by a dramatic fall in headline inflation, which reached a multi-year low of 5.4% in December 2025. Recent data suggests the disinflation trend has remained remarkably resilient, with February 2026 inflation further cooling to 3.3%. Despite the positive domestic outlook, Governor Isiama cautioned at the opening of the 129th meeting that external risks remain a concern. The primary threat is the escalating conflict in the Middle East, which has pushed international crude prices toward the $105 per barrel mark. The official decision statement, which will outline the MPC's stance and economic outlook for the remainder of the year, is scheduled for release immediately following the conclusion of today's final deliberations.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report on the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana set to announce interest rates decision later today. Meanwhile, finance and tax analyst Nelson Kujoku-Agbaji expects the Bank of Ghana to adopt a cautious approach amid the escalating tensions in the Middle East that have already begun to push global oil prices upward above $100 per barrel. He projects rate cuts by 100 to 200 basis points. The committee's decision, expected today, will signal whether the bank believes Ghana's macroeconomic buffers are strong enough to witness or withstand a global energy shock.
Non-food inflation basket has inbuilt there utilities and transportation, and so when prices at the pump increases, transportation, first will also go up, and that will trigger some level of inflationary pressures. And so, given all these uncertainties, both domestically and also considering the fact that the war is still ongoing and it may have a serious repercussion on the crude prices and, for that matter, prices at the pump, the Bank of Ghana will be very cautious in relation to the rate that they may finally come out with. And so we expect the Bank of Ghana to be cautious and very prudent. And so at the end of the policy meeting, we expect the Bank of Ghana to cut down on the rate moderately by some 100 to 200 basis points to about 13.5%. And once this is done, we expect, Ghana reference rate, which is currently at 11.74%, to go down, and that will also translate into reduced lending rate, and that can boost and expand credit to the private sector for the economy to grow.
And that was finance and tax analyst Nelson Kujo-Kwagbeji. Ghana ended 2025 with a total debt stock of 641 billion Ghana cedis, marking a marginal decline. This was captured in the Bank of Ghana's Summary of Economic and Financial Data for March 2026. The data also showed that Ghana's debt-to-GDP ratio slowed to 45.3%. In 2024, the country's total debt stock stood at 726.7 billion cedis, with a debt-to-GDP ratio of 61.8%. The report indicated that the debt stock declined steadily from November to December 2025. Some market analysts attribute the reduction to the cedi's sharp appreciation in 2025, particularly in the last quarter of the year. This is still Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Outside some other stories, the Center for Extractives and Development Africa, CEDA, is calling for stronger transparency and accountability measures in Ghana's mineral revenue management. It warns that
we've noticed that the governance measures, the transparency and accountability requirement under MIF has not been able to achieve all of them, including annual report, annual financial statement. Though they have published their investment guidelines, they were supposed to publish it in the first or second year of their operations. They only publish it in 2024.
He also raised concerns about recent amendments affecting mineral royalty allocations, particularly the creation of the Mineral Income Holding Account, where a significant portion of revenues is now lodged.
78% of that money goes into that particular account. The question is, what is the transparency requirement of that account?
Samuel Bequin further stressed the need for oversight mechanisms similar to those used in the petroleum sector, noting that mineral revenues generate even more income but lack comparable scrutiny.
Even if we don't want to create another body like PIAC or expand the mandate of PIAC, we should get the government being more responsible by publishing more information about how much mineral revenue came in, even if it is going to big push, how those projects were selected, which projects it's funded, and then letting Ghanaians understand where the monies are being invested into.
According to CEDA, publishing detailed investment returns, beneficiary information, and project outcomes will help ensure that Ghana's non-renewable resources are used to benefit both current and future generations. And that was a report on the Center for Extractives and Development Africa, CEDA, demanding immediate transparency in Ghana's multi-billion cedi mineral revenue management. And that brings us to the end of Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Up next is Urban Blend with Black Rasta. Please stay.